Um, so I will just like start with the questions, but then those are just like really short guideline questions. And I think whenever we want to expand the conversation, we can just go for it. Just like I like having like a little bit framework so that it doesn't really go like 2 hours or we just go to like another contact in the end. So yeah,
I mean, that's very good to have like a structure for everything, you know. Yeah.
exactly. All right. So Eugene, you study at Wilson College, and can you like introduce yourself to us a little bit more and maybe like tell us about your major and what you're working on currently? I know you're graduating, but
Yes, I am graduating next, so which is exciting.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, like you said, my name is Eugene. I go by Gato. So I'm from Rwanda. I study physics, government, and data analysis at Wesleyan. So, well, I chose basically this, like crazy combination, because physics and government don't really go together. I'm really interested into government, but also Wesleyan, like the liberal arts, like, college, you can do like other things that you want. So I was like, okay, well, I'm
Mm,
interested in government, but also I have a chance to be a scientist. So let me do what I'm interested in and then do government, then data analysis. Well, we are in emerging technology. I mean, in emerging, like, like technological world where like, everything's now, data
mm,
driven based. So I was like, okay, we'll have this combination of politics and physics, but then
nice.
data combines everything. So data is like food.
Mm, do you
So I
think
chose that as, a way of combining everything together. Sorry.
hmm do you think it's really data is kind of like this thing that lies across like humanities and STEM and sort of like tie stuff together in the middle?
Yeah, well, I would think, yes, data actually applies to every, every subject, no matter which department, either natural sciences or humanities, because at the end of the day, we need statistics, we need facts, and
Mm,
that is
yeah.
mostly provided by data. So I believe it works for whatever course of like subject you want to pursue.
hmm Okay. Yeah, that leads up to not the second question that I planned out, but
Mhm.
one of those questions that I think will make the most sense. So, like, how do you think data science can work hand in hand with like social missions that we kind of discuss in the EcoSoc Youth Forum a lot, like the SDGs and other social movement, and what is your personal experience interacting with those data via, I mean, we talked about our studio, but like interacting with those data, but also like the social aspects of things in your own, I guess, school or projects or just in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, actually, like, that's like really like a good question, because you and Hannah, we talked about, how you guys like the most youngest, people
Hmm
at the conference.
Yeah.
So you have that. Okay, like if you tell me that, it's like, yes, I will understand that. But if you give me facts, that's like, the graph, you're like, okay,
mm,
guys from a university, this is 90%. High school, I have 10%, but this is the
mm,
future generation. So how do we
yeah.
make decisions without the future generation present? So data is giving us facts that we need more people of these categories. So I believe when it comes to, the SDGs, like it's more important to use data, because it helps us to know, okay, what is the progress that we have made, and where do we
hmm
need to go, and which groups do we need to include, which demographics do we need to include most, and what ideas seems to be more like urgent. So
hmm
that is like where I see like data in the play, and in achieving the goals.
Exactly. I think I've read like an article a few months ago actually, but then it's kind of talking about how data science and really analyzing those problems quantitatively helps, like it both helps us to better understand what we are trying to going for, but also like it helps to persuade people in terms of like why this problem is that important. Because I feel like when you think of data points as those like living human beings that they're like representing in the situation, like in your country or like in the world, it's like more persuasive because you can really visualize stuff of like what is actually happening, but instead of like only listening to this vague concept that like I will be like, oh, people are suffering, but then you're like, okay, what does that mean? But then if you really give out those data, it helps people to understand to like better act to it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It just magnifies it, like, this concept. It magnifies, like, the whatever we want to achieve, and people can, interact with it.
Hmm.
And also with, you said, like, my experience interacting with the ARA. I think the first benefit of ARA, it's free. That's the first thing. So
Mm.
anybody in the world can use it. So it's a free resource online that you can download and play around with it. But also it's very appealing to look at. I
Mm.
mean, I use ARA, I use Stata, I use Python, I use
Mm.
MATLAB, and I use Mathematica. But ARA, I have like tutored, different classes like the past 3 years in ARA and Stata.
Mm.
I think ARA is more, to me, like personal because of its appealing visuals that
Yeah,
are free to use.
exactly.
Yeah. So if you use, for example, look at Stata, I'm not trying to advertise for ARA, but if you look at Stata, it's really complicated to, if it's not more like user friendly when, you know, graphing or doing the statistical analysis. But ARA, once you get a gesture of that, the first interaction, it becomes very easy. And it's easy also to get like the, resources online that, how do
Mm.
I do this? How do I perform this? Because it's already free. So still, there is free resources about the use of ARA. So I think ARA is very important for that reasons,
Mm.
it has good visuals and it's also free. So it can really
Exactly.
graphics.
It's really accessible to everyone who like want to play with it and like who kind of want to know more about it. Because I mean, of course, I'm not gonna pay for for art if it were actually like it has to cost me something to do it. But I think the visual is. I saw like a really cool visual like data visualizing project a few weeks ago. It's kind of like they use R Studio with something else, and they pull out like they were like talking about population density in China, and they pull out like this whole map with that like kind of like histograms on top of it with R, and they're like heated and everything. I'm like, that's so cool because it's not just like numbers anymore. They are like making this thing so like visualizing and so like I guess visually appealing as you were talking about.
Yeah, it's very, 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 a very powerful tool to use with the visuals. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, great. Um, yeah. So I mean, I guess we met in the EcoSoc Youth Forum a a month ago, less than a
Yes.
month ago, a month
Right.
ago. Oh
Yeah,
my
was the
God.
20, right? Yeah, it's a month. It
Yeah, it was
was
like
almost
2 days to a month ago. Okay, yeah, that's pretty long ago. I feel like I'm old enough after that. Um, but yeah, can you like kind of tell us more about like what's the mission of like the project you were working on proceeding towards the youth forum?
yeah, again, well, like I've been discussing about, data analysis. I think,
Hmm.
yes, the world becoming more technological, and if it's becoming more technological, in my opinion, it's a chance to bring everybody together. We have this history of inequality. Yes, we can't eradicate it like in one day, but if we are transforming from one phase to another, like
Mm.
traditional methods of doing things, but we're now going to technological method of doing things, so we have a chance of helping even the most disadvantaged like groups to transition well to this new era of technology. So
Mm.
my project, Rwanda Youth Tech Informants, is mainly aiming at trying to help like people in the rural areas of Rwanda to adapt to the computer, skills, and get
Hmm.
these, get into this digital world. I mean, an example is like I grew up in a rural area, of course. So
Hmm.
I got my laptop, I think, when I was 19, 20. That's when I got my first laptop. It wasn't my laptop, it was my father's laptop that the government had given him to do his work. So
Hmm.
I kind of has some benefit of using his laptop. So now if the government is putting most of the services online, if we need the jobs, we need to apply online, educational resources that are found online. So people who cannot, I mean, who have no like basic computer skills, they're at a disadvantage. And we have a chance of bringing these people on board with us. So my project is specifically trying to bridge that gap. In Rwanda, like the capital city of Rwanda, which is Kigali, people are
Mm,
more of technological, oriented than those in rural areas, which leaves us a gap. So how can we just bridge that gap and bring the people of Rwanda together as a nation? So yes, I can't do everything at once, but you just begin with something, and one step at a time. I hope we can have the whole population on the same level of technological understanding, which they can use for job creations, they can use for entrepreneurship, they can use to get those government services, and generally develop together as a nation.
mm, so cool. Yeah, I think there's really like there's a saying of like for equalities and like social development, there's like this front end of like how do we expand, but then also like how do we make sure that we can close this up the gap as much as possible when we are like going forwards or like trying to have those technology breakthroughs. So yeah, how many years have you been working on this project? Just curious.
Okay, well, I had it in my mind since 2019. I initially thought of doing
Damn.
it as a library, like, have a library that, have
Mm,
books, have, a librarian that can help
mm-hmm,
people, residents of the community. But then when you think about a library, it's more like traditional. You gotta get a physical book. But now
mm,
online you can access millions of books with just one laptop. So I
mm,
kept having that in mind. And when I got a chance, I was like, well, this is the right time to now implement my project. I got
mm,
funds from the Davis Project for Peace. And then how does it connect with the peace? Again, I believe people do fight in the world. People fight because of insufficient resources or mis distribution of resources. If
mm,
resources are not equally distributed, those who get less, they're gonna feel inferior to their fellow citizen, and then that's a source of conflict. If you
mm,
give people, food, people can get clean water, those people are most less likely to fight. That's why America is so safe. However, we have different opinions, but we know at the end of the day there is opportunities to work and get food at the table. So the
mm,
same thing with Rwanda. If can we can have every member, on the same board as we approach this digital era, there is a high chance they can find jobs online. They
mm,
can be entrepreneurial, like creative online, get something, get food at their tables. That is, in a way, preventing conflict. So that's
mm,
how it comes into peacemaking.
mm. Very logical and persuasive statement. Um, I've never like really thought of it that way, but yeah, I think it's really amazing how like everything just sort of linked together and there's like
Yeah, I had
a
this
common goal.
conversation. I had this conversation with my an Uber, man. Like we're, just driving. I was like, "You think there is a lot of fighting in Africa and Middle
Mm,
East?" I was like, actually, I think if you provide food and water, you won't see any conflict in Africa and Middle East. I
mm-hmm,
don't understand that. But yeah, after a while, I was like, here in America, I have different opinion with you. I have, I support different political party. But at the end of the
mm-hmm,
day, I'm gonna go home and find food at the table.
mm-hmm,
So doesn't matter if we agree or disagree, I'm gonna eat.
mm,
But if
exactly.
somebody disagrees with you and you know that person can get food and you can't, you're gonna take it more like, in a personal way, like you just actually the fact that you have power or you support this party in power and you're having food, that means if I can take over your power in any means, including the violent means, I can also
Mm,
have food. And that
mm.
creates the yeah.
Very deep. But yeah, I think it's like really on social welfare and just the what is it called? Like in economy, isn't there's like this thing about needs? Like there's like
Uh,
basic needs and but yeah. I mean, yeah, like I think that just really reminded me of that, and also like how we sort of need to make sure that close the gap and make sure that everyone's sort of like living on like welfare life before we really want to make any additional like developments or improvements. I think it's really a lot of the works that like you are doing, and also like the UN is kind of trying to tackle on.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that the basic needs,
Mhm. Yeah. So regarding your project or like in your own experience in light of the theme of like the ECOSOC Youth Forum in accelerating COVID recovery, like what do you think are some long-lasting impacts of COVID that like maybe last longer than, just the COVID cases or like death and other things?
Yeah, well, I would say again, I think the COVID or any other pandemic shed light to, the social problems,
Mm,
especially like, how these, you know, pandemics or diseases of wars can drastically impact like, low income, communities,
mm,
So if you tell somebody, you're like, okay, well, you're gonna die, yes, if you don't stay at home. But if I stay at home without food, I'm gonna die anyway.
mm,
So doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna go to work because that's where I get food. So for me, the lessons from this is more like, okay, whoa, we have these vulnerable like communities in every
mm,
country, in America, in Rwanda, in China. We have these vulnerable communities, but how can we protect them during this kind of a pandemic? In terms of the long-term effect of the COVID-19, again, so these groups like the disadvantaged groups were already at a disadvantage before COVID. And now
mm,
COVID hits. There is, there is there is high chances of getting a disease and dying. So there is losing lives of people, and also there is losing jobs.
mm, yeah,
So to bounce back to the level of, before COVID, it's really hard. It needs some cooperation and some government efforts to raise up like these people. If people were laid off, before COVID, and now maybe their skills have, outdated because after like 2 years, it's a lot of time. So how
mm,
can we
yeah,
help these people come back to, their normal life? How can we help these people have the same attitude before COVID? It might not be like the same attitude. Anyway, COVID changed a lot of things, but I think it is more important, like, these disease informed us of, how do we protect these vulnerable, like,
mhm,
groups of people. It's gonna be, a long time to just go back to the same rhythm, but how can we actually use that rhythm to just change and make sure we help these communities? So to me, yes, it's going to have like a long-term impact in terms of economics
mm,
and health, because if you think about it, people who aren't able to get, vaccines, there are those
yeah,
from families, people who weren't able to, to get treated properly and died, those from poor families. So they lost lives, and now they are at economical disadvantage level. So we need, yeah, it's a long-term impact for those families. They lost people
mm,
and the economy is down, but also it's more like a lesson. What can we do to prevent the
mm,
next pandemic? Not a disease, it
yes,
might be, I don't know what it might be even famine, but how can we make sure we put in resources and infrastructures to help these vulnerable groups? I think that is a good lesson we learned from COVID.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things were the main problem for COVID is not like whether we have the total resources, but like why are we not prepared? And like really the COVID exposed us to a lot of like the inequality to access that we already have, but then because we have this competition, because of the scarcity of resources like vaccines and like masks, and like I think sometimes even hand sanitizers and like tissues, that it really like exposed it to like while we're not doing good on so many aspects of things, but then like we weren't feeling it because there weren't an emergency. And I guess that's just like I feel like looking at it on the bright side, it really tells us like what we should do next time, or like what we should be starting to do immediately right now in order to prevent those things from like happening again in the future. So yeah, have you like
Yes.
yeah, sorry. Have you like seen any, I'm just curious, like any changes in your own project or like towards Rwanda where like you're working on because of COVID? I mean, like you sort of like started during COVID year, but like, is there anything specific related to it?
Again, it's education, most of like physical schools, like, closed. So it's supposed to be online again. Literally, like most of the countries, I mean, like most of like, schools in the, developing countries, including Rwanda, shut down. Like here, I go to Wesleyan. I was able to attend schools online because I
Mm,
have a laptop. I can afford internet. But that's not a basic need in Rwanda.
yeah.
People with the internet, they're really from these rich families. That
Mm,
means those on like, lower, spectrum of the economy, they didn't have their education. Like literally some of my friends suspended 2 years of school. That is an
mm,
huge impact in the long run of the country. So yes, I have seen like, that change during, the COVID.
mm. And one of some of the things that like did not matter that much before COVID, but now like because of kind of this environment and like staying online. I never like I took my first year of high school online and also like distance learning from another country with time difference. And I never realized how important like a stable connection is. And also like because of I was like in Shanghai during that period of time, like VPN. Um,
Yeah.
is so important. I thought I would survive. I survived my past like I don't know 15 years of my life without it. But then just like having this COVID, I'm like, oh shoot. It's just everything about technology, about internet is just it's so important that everyone can have access to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that ties back to my project. Like we need people with the, computer skills to be able to
Mm,
adapt to this evolving, world, technological world. Yeah. So definitely, yeah, I agree with you that some things that we overlooked before COVID, but now we found it's actually like, a crucial component of the modern life.
mhm, exactly. Yeah. I guess we kind of already covered like, do you think if there are like certain demographic groups that are more impacted by COVID? We talked about how like in rural areas or like when generally when people have less um access to I guess internet, food, mask, and everything during COVID, it's easier to cause a long lasting impact on them. But yeah. I mean, how do you think we can sort of like amplify their voices to better support them? Because I know in the EcoSoc forum, we definitely have seen like people not being able to go there because of passport issues. And I think it's kind of like in a way that their voice are less heard because of like those barriers they're experiencing. And what do you think we can do to help support this kind of situation?
Yeah, well, I think that I mean, personally, I believe that is something that comes down to local levels. Like me and you, if we get involved, we're
Mm,
gonna change so much. I'm personally, yes, I would love to go to New York and voice my concern, but I think I would voice my concern better when I'm at Wesley and with the people that actually I work with every single day. So we need
mm,
to create that community like mission, like as young
mm,
people, as the members of a community, we're like, okay, well, we need this thing to change. Yes, we can go to the UN, voice this and get this political international, backup, but at the end of the day, America is made up of over 300 million people. Like, imagine if you
yeah.
do, this is supposed to be this way, and you have like, 1,000 young people like you who you want some changes. The impact that those people can make, that is going to be so huge. Yes, we need international stage to, voice share our ideas with different people, in different parts of the world. But for me, what is more important is everybody to take this in their own hands. This is the
Mm,
situation that we have. what can I do as a citizen of the country, as a citizen of the world? What can I do? From there, if everyone has that kind of mindset, then everybody's gonna think with a positivity outcome. Actually, we don't even
Hmm.
need those meetings. We won't even have those visa problems. But yeah, I do realize the importance of having this international stage. And I think to be, good for the governments, like, the governments to make sure that, they support this youth in every way they can,
Hmm. Yeah.
including visas to, meet even other people like we met in the UN. I never knew Coco, but
Yeah,
now I know
exactly.
question, I'm gonna reach out to you. You have a question, you're gonna reach out to me. So those are like benefits of sharing ideas when we meet on international level. I know what you're working on, you know what I'm working on, and then how do
Hmm.
we work together to make a better world?
Hmm. Exactly. I think I used to think of social in like a pretty negative way. I mean, I feel like kind of hearing about social and growing up, but then I feel like going to the conference and really like getting to know people like you and like Hannah, actually. It's like what value can that kind of connections really add on to like both of us and like to the people who have been in a conference even. And I think it's just a really meaningful thing to do to really like continue to have those impacts even like when there's not a UN conference, what can you do to make sure that we are connected and we're like staying up to date for like what are our perspectives and like what are we working on like things. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
I have like 6 minutes left because I don't have a Zoom um Pro. I didn't pay for Zoom, but I guess I have a final question. So like if you only have one piece of advice, what would you give for like youth who are like passionate about like shaping changes, especially like post COVID?
yeah, post-COVID, I would say just go for it. You know, you think about something, do it. Yeah, I mean, literally, I told you I had this idea since 2019, but I was
Mm-hmm.
afraid to start mainly because I thought, okay, well, I need this, I need that, I need that. How do I put this component together? But
Mm-hmm.
once I outlined my thinking, I was like, this is what I need to do. Whoever I talked to with the physical just outline of what I want, it's like, oh, this is a good idea. I'm on board. Literally, like I have
Yes.
like 15 people who are volunteering to help me in my project. But I never had those people with my idea in the head. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking of doing something, just go for it. There is another person, other people who are willing to help you, but they can't help you without you expressing what you
Mm,
want to do. So you
exactly.
are for social changes, just go for it. That would be my advice for the youth who want to change the world in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think when I had the idea for like the shared initiative and like art therapy and mental health, especially like post COVID, I think I also started it in like the recent years. But I was like scared. I'm like, okay, my idea is like having those in schools, but then like apparently I can't be in all of the high schools that I want to be. But then like, what should I really do about it? And like, but then I feel like I met a lot of people in the forum, and I know they're not like high school students I can technically work with, but then they're just like, I mean, you guys are just so nice, and like, I feel like everyone's as you said, as long as like you explain your idea clear enough and you kind of shows that you're really passionate, you have first-hand experience, and you care about the thing that you're working on. It's just things later on sort of like just happen naturally. Um, and yeah
Yeah, I
think
do.
it's mhm,
Yeah, I just agree with this. Just, the passion and just outline it clearly and be able to explain it to somebody else. You're gonna have a lot of people in your body before you know.
exactly. That is a very nice sentence to end on. Um, yeah, I think that's the end of the formal discussion that we just had, and we have 3 minutes
Nice
to wrap it
talking.
up with casual stuffs. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. It's just, a pleasure to
Aw,
see.
I
No, I
know.
miss you. I
Thank
do.
you. I know. Thank you so much for having like this opportunity and like really talking a lot about like I guess your project and also about Wellsian. And I can see how it's such a beautiful community from everything you said in the past 40 minutes.
It's a wonderful place. I would say I'm really glad that I got a chance to be here. And actually next year I'm gonna be an intern for the admission office. So I'm
Oh
gonna
my
speak more.
God. Maybe you can interview me. Wait, is that what are you interning for?
Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing. Yes, I might be actually you. You never know. Yeah, so yep, interviewing, like we're gonna be holding info sessions about Wesleyan. So I'll be talking more about
Mm,
my experience working for the past 4 years. Yeah, so definitely my cross path there, but
mm.
definitely is Wesleyan at some point.
Whoa, I will. I already heard enough from my teacher and every day, and I think I will love to visit the campus. And Hannah
Perfect.
says she will visit me also when she comes to Connecticut, but I do not know when that's gonna be. Um,
Well, if it's in July, I'm gonna be back on campus. I'm going to Rwanda
mm,
this August. Actually, like
oh my
next
God.
week I'm going back
Are you
home.
flying next week?
Next week I'm going back home. Yeah, in June. Yeah, and then I'm gonna be there for a month and then come back in July, the 1st of July. And so I'm
Mm.
gonna July. So if Hannah is coming over the week, the summer of July, then I'm gonna be here.
Yeah,
Mm.
I will. Yeah, I'll also be flying home next week, and then coming back mid-July again. Uh, Hopefully that's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's stay in touch and let me know how
of
everything's
course,
is going.
of
Yeah.
course, of course. I will be trying my best to survive through this finals weeks. I hate it. I really don't like it, but I think it's really necessary for people to undergo something like that, even though I don't really fully understand the reason. Of
Yeah, it's part of the journey.
yeah, of
Yeah. And
course.
yeah, I wish you the best for your finals and
Um,
good luck.
aw, happy graduation in 6 days. Woo!
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, I guess if we don't cut off, Zoom's probably gonna pop off in like 30
Yeah.
seconds. So thank you so much for having this time when like for rescheduling this time after so